There we go. Microphone was still off. Oh, I am so good at being my own worst enemy here. So I will start again right from the top here because yeah, hi. I had some technical difficulties. I actually did a full setup in here. I moved my microphone from where it was put onto a I had my microphone bolted to a little end table at the end of my desk, and the camera, that camera is where it's been for the past while. It's sitting on top of one of my monitors. The camera that's up here for whoops, for this doobly doo. That camera was on a tripod behind the monitor in front of me. So yeah, you would not believe the rigging that I had to do on the camera up above because, well, I'm using yarn and ribbon and crochet thread and it's a thing. So let's see here. I'm going to start from the top again. Hello, Kat and Chrissy and Sue and Ninja Zada from Edmonton. So I've got some Canadians in the house. This is good. I won't feel too bad when I slip into my Ottawa Valley patois. Mary Bull from Devon, UK. Lorraine from Ontario. And no, you have not missed anything, Michelle, because the bank called to set up an appointment with my dad at the very last minute. Yeah, that's the hardest part about getting through family troubles is, or rather death in the family, is you have to do all this paperwork and stuff afterwards. And Dad leans on me because I'm local. So 2 minutes before I have to go live, I've got Dad's bank calling to set up an appointment to sign papers. It's just bizarre. Let's see, we've got Alora from Arizona and Bookcat and Sherry. Oh my goodness. Hey Cher, how you doing? Cher is kind of like an honorary sister-in-law. If anybody has been in the Discord and has noticed, what are the names here? Has noticed C and Berry Bell. And they're usually under the name Meddling Kids. C and Berry Bell are like my local crafty girls. The husbeast gave me Sherry, Berry Bell, and we kind of mutually adopted C. So there we go. Ray and Anne-Marie Morin Barrard. My French accent sucks right now. Oh, and Fanny and Ashley and Fi or Fi Canera from Czechia. Goodness, there's a lot of folks here. I'm used to like my usual group of malcontents on the backseat gaming stitch and bitch that I do on Twitch once in a while, in which I play Final Fantasy and we talk about crafts, which is fun. But yeah, usually I'm used to something like 5 people showing up, and right now, oh my goodness, YouTube says 18. Well then. So I have my spinner. I also have my tatting, but it doesn't show up as well on here because my eyes are terrible and I wind up having to bring up everything so close. I have to go see the eye doctor. I know. But in the meantime, I thought that I would work on the blue and olive fluff. I've got the first bobbin done. Oh, there we go. And it's looking really nice. And it spins up real nice and fine. I mean, there we go. Reel some of that off. That's pretty fine stuff. Let me know if the music is too loud. It's supposed to be ducking out while I talk. But I'm not sure if it's doing what it's supposed to do. Actually, it looks like it's probably down way too low. Here, let's bring you up a little bit. How's that? Okay. Braids with tapes, looking good. I considered putting it in my customary, bun, sort of wash and go, stick it on the back of the head, and then I thought, yeah, no, let's use the braids. They're fun. Advance notice was super helpful on time blind, so I set alarms for things like this. Yeah, the husbeast has kind of been has been giving me the business lately because I've become a little bit time blind myself. So I'll say, yeah, I'll be up in about 10 minutes, and 2 hours later. 2 hours later, it's just, yeah. So I have a cup of tea. It's just regular old Tetley with some cream and sweetener in it. And I figure we'll probably take a break around, I don't know, what's halfway between here and 3:30? 2:30? 2:30? We'll see. It'll depend on when I run out of tea. But at that point, what I'll do is I will put things on standby, skibble upstairs, and grab another cup of tea, probably stick it in the nuker, and then bring it back down. So we'll keep going on this. Yay, we are plugged in. We're on Z twist. We're on Z twist. It's been probably about a week or so since I played with this, maybe a little bit longer. I had some fiber on my big wheel that I wanted to get. Well, I had fiber on the big wheel that I wanted to finish off. This fluffy yellow stuff that my brother and sister-in-law brought back from, I think, Whitehorse. And it's just cute. But I have decided that I'm not going to finish it off. In other words, give it a soak and then thwack it out and hang to dry until I've got a couple of things that need to go in. Like this won't, if I was to put this in with it, it probably won't kill the color too much because they both have yellowish colors and bluish colors. I do also have another purple that I need to divide up onto bobbins because I've got spun singles, but wanted to, I've got spun singles. I wanted to divide them off onto 3 bobbins so I could 3-ply rather than chain plying it because I suck at chain plying. You'd think that practice makes perfect, but no, it just makes it look bad for me. Okay. Oh, let's see here. Hello, Kathy. I see you. So it's about 3 o'clock over there. So yeah, we'll go for about an hour or so, and then we'll take a quick break. We'll refresh our tea and go again for another little bit. And then I'm off to the dad's place to help him with a couple of things. So I'm very sorry that I haven't posted any actual really good videos online quite yet. I'm working mostly on the tatted trim for my blouse right now. I'm making sure what I want for that. Right now thoughts are possibly a nice little jabot or jabot and possibly cuffs. Not sure. You tell me to ignore you, forced to make this bloody account, and that's guaranteed a way to get shouted out. Oh boy. Forced to make this bloody account. I like that name. Some things for my husband to buy for my birthday at the weekend at a great wool weekend. Ooh, that sounds like fun. Game plying works best broken into chaining, then plying. Yeah. I need to get back into the swing of it, but of course part of it was, I think, with the chain plying, trying to move my feet and move my hands at the same time, going like this, can be a little difficult. So, what am I gonna do here? Now, if I recall correctly, I think this needs to be put in half. This is like the most satisfying thing ever. No! Let's try this again. Okay, so this would be the one that I have to do in 4s. I am not prepared to handle that today. So I am going... I probably could have saved myself a little trouble and heartache if I had just looked at that first. So we're doing a fractal ply on this. It is the one bobbin that's already done. This guy. Actually, let me just see here. There we go. This fellow over here was just taken as 1/3 of the very long piece of roving, which is Into the World fiber in the colorway Qarth, Qarth, which is part of the July 2013 Luxe Spinning Club. It is 80% merino, 20% silk, and it is very soft on the hands. Right now I'm just putting this back together because I am not prepared to divide it into 4 right now. I thought this was my 2, but it looks as though I have already divided those out. And on the stream where I unboxed this, I had done a very quick demonstration of what a fractal ply is. So in this case, what I'm doing is I'm doing a fractal 3 ply. First ply is just the length of the roving itself. We'll go back to the other thing here. So just the length of the roving itself. So like this. About this thick. So 1/3 of the roving. The second ply will be this length in half, and the third ply will be this divided into 4. And that way, hopefully, all of the color will nice and evenly divide. So it looks as though I already pre-divided these, which is good. Put this back, stick it on the bottom. There's your opening a bag ASMR for the day. And yeah, okay, there we go. What have I got here? I have 2 strands. I'm gonna give you the maximum of the satisfying unwrap. Which side is my unwrapping side? Not that side. Don't think. Nope. Okay. Got bits of fluff all over the place. This is amazing. Okay. So I'm going to have to actually divide this in 2 because apparently I didn't pre-do it. It was me not thinking ahead. Alright. Here we are. We go. Hypnotic in a good way, that's good. That here and tuck that out of the way. Side, yeah, that's okay. And I lost my little piece. Whoops. Vibrary ASMR is about the only ASMR that I can do because a lot of the noises that they use for ASMR just don't work for me. Okay, so that would go together. This has a little bit of blue still in it from where it was disentangled from this. Okay. Gonna move this out of the way so that it's no longer a problem or no longer going to get in the way. There's the flat side. Nice thing about the bobbins from Dreaming Robots is one side is actually one side has, of course, the groove for your tensioner, the piece of cotton right there. The other side over here, where the orifice is totally flat, so that if you need to, you can just lay that flat on the ground, and it's not going to roll away, which I find awesome. Unfortunately, the bobbins for my big wheel upstairs, the Shacked Reeves, it unfortunately does not want to. I can't use the Lazy Kate for the Dreaming Robots spinner. The diameter of the little pegs, the poles on Lazy Kate, are just not right. They're not the right size, not the same size. So that's disappointing, but instead what I did was I went and I took a little bit of elastic that I used for making masks, and I wrapped that around I'm having trouble wording today. Wrapped that around the base of my other Lazy Kate, my original Lazy Kate, and yeah, that seems to have worked fine. I am going to need a leader thread, so I'm just going to zoom back, grab some of the crochet cotton. I think this is number 3 or number 5. It's number 5. Part of this is what's holding up that camera. Okay, be more than enough. Open a drawer, find scissors. I have stuff all over the place in here. Part of the reason why it's going to be a little bit longer before I get another sewing video done, partially, yeah, sewing was one of the things that my mother did as it was her thing. My thing was knitting, and then I started expanding out to, actually I started off with cross stitch, and then I went into knitting, and knitting became my obsession for like over 10 years. And then I started expanding into crochet once I left my job, my full-time work. Basically, they were doing a mass disruption at the company I was working for, and so it seemed that getting out while I could was a good idea. Of course, finding work afterwards is difficult. But where knitting and then eventually some of the other crafts was my thing. Which way are we going? Okay, good. Actually, I want it to go that way. It goes the opposite way. Okay. So sewing was something that my mother had done since she was very young, and it's something that I always associate with her. So working on the blouse, I was already a little wiggy about getting started on it, because a blouse is a very, I'm not going to say tricky thing, but it's got a lot of parts to it, unlike a skirt. So, okay, let's see if that works best. Nope. No. Are you going? I had it right the first time. Needless to say, it's taking me a while to get my sewing mojo back. But in the meantime, I've been finding other ways to keep myself busy. One of the things that I have to do, and it's one of those things that you never really think about until the time comes, is stash. They call it sable. Oh, wrong side. Right way, wrong side. This is wonderful. I'm gonna go away. It's not the way I want it to go. I'm going to keep futzing with this all afternoon. Just watch. Okay. This direction. The problem with both my mother and I being big crafters is stash acquired beyond life expectancy, aka sable. And I'm considering doing a long form video about it. We'll see. Maybe I'll just keep it to talking about it here. But the fact is that my mom has a rather large fabric stash. And I'm not talking about big stuff. I'm not talking about yards and yards of fabric that I could just happily and merrily use for all of my historical crafty adventures. I'm talking about a few things that are, you know, a few meters, using meters and yards interchangeably. A few things were, you know, meters lengths because they were meant for, say, my niece's, a dress for my niece, or a shirt for my dad, or something like that. Most of the rest of this stuff is either in half meter or meter long lengths, and it's partially because she was doing small crafts, things like, you know, making masks, or she wanted to try her hands at making bags at one point. In fact, upstairs I've got a bag that I crocheted and was considering, you know, putting an insert bag into it, and she said, "Oh, let me do that." And so that was one of the last things that she got done for me. For my brother, it was putting a lining on a favorite blanket. But the fact of the matter is that now there's all of this fabric that I'm going to have to go through, and it's not like she was a quilter or anything. Some of the fabric is from when she owned her own company doing color analysis. So you may hear me at some point say that I'm a summer or that my mother was a winter, and part of that is because she did color analysis in the 1980s. I think I've my wallet around here somewhere. I think my color wallet's around here someplace, because I was planning on doing a video about that. But depending on your skin tone, hair color, color of your eyes, certain colors will tend to look better on you. Like, for instance, I am wearing black and gray today because gray is like pastel black. The thing is that I don't look good in black. I have to compensate with a little bit of makeup for that. And yeah, Mum looked fabulous in black. It just made her look great. With me, it just washes me right out, makes me look drab. So sell what I know I won't use. That is true. That is true. Basically, because when Mom was doing her color analysis stuff, one of the things she would do is she would set somebody up under a nice light like I've got here in the office, and she would put swags of fabric underneath their neck and or across their chest and see what it was that kind of made them light up, because you never know when the person who is coming in has just got a really great, you know, hair dye job that they just sort of lucked into the right color and stuff like that. So eventually Mom got to the point where she could just take a look at somebody and go, yeah, I know what season you are. For instance, the aforementioned C likes to have everything in shades of gray. We're both recovering goths, so I don't blame her for that. But we were wondering what colors would, you know, best augment that, and Mom just sort of went, yeah, no, C's a summer. middle of a yarn store, she's like, go near the light. Okay, yep, she's a summer. So at that point, it's like, okay, so pastel pinks and blues are in, sapphires and reds, sapphires and rubies also in. Black is dodgy. You can wear it. You're not going to look your best in it, but you can wear it. And I know this because I'm a summer. For years, the run-on joke for Mom was whether or not I had any color in my wardrobe, and she was surprised when the husband said, "What do you mean? She wears color all the time. You should see her. She has like pastel pink stuff." Personally, I think pastel pink and black is cool. It's one of my favorites. But yeah, I could put them on coffee and sell them off, or I could take up quilting. Not sure I want to do that. Where is my on-off pedal? My on-off pedal is buried. Around here someplace. Ah! When I was playing around with this upstairs, I found that it was actually easier to have the on-off pedal closer to where I actually was, rather than use it for my foot. Hopefully that'll work. For take up. Nope. This is why I'm starting with the little tiny piece. I'm gonna move this back so you can actually see what's going on with the orifice. Or I could. There we go. Get the twist out of that. I'm gonna try it again. I found that with this machine, sometimes getting started can be a bit difficult. Sometimes. But yeah, I'm gonna have to go through Mom's fabric. I'm gonna have to go through her. I was very lucky. She actually did a lot of her sorting of stuff. She sorted a lot of her things before she went into the hospital, so that was good. That makes my job a lot easier, but it's still a whole lot of stuff. We had the local ham radio. the local ham radio operators come in and take her equipment off of our hands. That was nice. And I think they were very happy to have a bunch of new stuff to play with. There we go. Adjusting my take up. So let's see who's been saying what, because I'm behind the times here, aren't I? People are knitting socks. Michelle's knitting socks, toe up and 2 at a time. Oh no. I can't do 2 at a time. 2 at a time does not work for me. Pairs of socks completed with a merino blend. Pair knitting now is just normal wool blend and feels so rough in comparison. Yeah, that'll happen. Well, Ray, you have a good afternoon. Things will definitely be still up later on, because I know a lot of folks can't get out immediately to see things. Okay, how this works. This first little bit is gonna look a little dodgy until I get into the groove. There we go. Now, the nice thing about this top-down view is I get a good idea of how much yarn is actually, or how much singles is actually on the bobbin. Spinning ice blue, merino, and sparkles. Ooh. I think I've got some roving around here from Fat Cat Knits that has some sparkles in it. Some kind of sparkly stuff. Maybe at some point I will spin a little bit of that. Knitting a Caterpie toy. Got the Pokemon thing going on there, eh? Okay. And that's where we are. I've just started putting my thing, putting my single thing, my free end around the speed dial. Hopefully I'm not messing stuff up. Okay, that's the right end. That's the right end. Let's go from there. And that way I know which end to pull from for the next go around. Here we go. It's that a little bit. Two at a time, because otherwise I'll have nothing but single socks. There's no way I'll finish one sock and start all over again. The only, I think I've only got 3-4 socks that don't have mates, and there's very good reasons for that. One of them is, the most recent one is a sock for my dad, and you could argue that it's because it's a sock for my dad and he has size 14 feet. The men in my family are giants. Or you could argue that the other reason why that particular pair of socks is taking as long as it is because I've got an idea in my head about thoughts that go through a sock knitter's head while they're knitting an extremely long sock. And with a size 14, it is an extremely long sock. I tell you, that was the punch in the gut, getting all Mom's socks back. But trying not to dwell on stuff like that. This is one of the reasons why, you know, I haven't put out a video in a while. But no, the other socks, I think I've got a sock that I started making for myself, and then I started gaining weight again and was like, there's no way this sock is going to fit my foot, so I'll just put this on hold. And two of them were second socks for a pattern that I did a while back, which is available on Ravelry, and I'm considering making the stuff that's on Ravelry available on the Patreon. What is that sock? To my designer page. Graboids. Sock called Graboids that was part of a Halloween sock along. Spooky, scary socks. Something along those lines. They've done it every year. I know that the first couple of years they did it, it was like, yay! We've got the spooky, scary sock thing going on, and then the next couple of years was like, are we going to be able to do this? Are we not going to be able to do this? I don't know, kind of thing. Check something here. You are right up. Okay. The next couple of years, they were unsure that they would be able to continue because, you know, the person who was organizing it didn't have a lot of time on her hands. And they've somehow managed to keep it going for a good number of years. Every year I get the notification of sign up if you want spooky, scary socks. And I go, okay, I haven't had a chance to knit any of them, but I've signed up for them. Super Sock Scarefest. Thanks, Cher. Ah. But yeah, I had done like his and hers socks for Super Sock Scarefest one year called Graboids, and I don't think I finished either pair of socks. One pair was eventually supposed to go to me, and one was supposed to go to the Husbeast, and didn't work out that. And I find 2 at a time doesn't work very well for me because I leave her knit doing it magic loop style, and so I find it exceptionally awkward to do 2 at a time. I have mad respect for anybody who can do 2 at a time on one needle, or like on one circular needle or otherwise. I think 2 circular needles is the other way. But I have to say that one of the things that I have been doing with my time while I haven't been making videos, or at least haven't been overtly making videos for release, is I've been doing a lot of thinking about the channel and where I fit into the whole crafting / costuming niche. And I have like I've got a Clairefontaine French cahier style notebook, which has really interesting. I think it's called French ruled, but it's got a really interesting ruling on it so that you can practice your handwriting and make sure that it looks cool. And I've got about 2 pages of that full of both sewing and otherwise ideas. I have this urge to make a sock encyclopedia, basically a sock compendium for the Patreon, with examples of how to knit the different heels and different toes and different cast-ons and cast-offs, and taking into account historic methods of making socks. It's just finding the time to sit and knit amongst all the other things that I've got on my plate. Hello, Bonnie. I like to knit socks either 2 at a time magic loop, or knit a long sock tube, cut it in half, then add an app. Yeah, afterthought heels, toes, and cuffs can be really useful. I've used them a couple of times myself. I think that's taking up just a little too fast now. I think we need to move out a little bit. That's the cool thing with knit socks. They're so infinitely customizable that if the quick and dirty afterthought heels and toes and doing a cuff works for you, then awesome. If you've got some folks who've got dodgy heels or high arches or narrow feet, you may find that you want to customize your heel a little bit more. Sometimes knitting socks for the husbeast is kind of like that. Magic loop on a 47-inch needle. Oh my goodness. I've got one of those around here somewhere. I have done it before. I find it awkward as all get out. And that's probably because of the way I lever knit. I've even got one of those little 9-inch circulars that you just put the stitches on and you just keep going around and around and around in circles. You don't have to worry about changing needle or anything like that. And unfortunately, it doesn't work very well with lever knitting either. It looks like the wheel is migrating. Straighten up and fly right, buddy. But yeah, right now my office, or my sewing room, is in a shambles because of all of the stuff that's being carted between here and my parents' house. And I'm hoping to get everything figured out and consolidated There's a few things that have to go up to my sister-in-law. I think my brother will be taking that with him next time he comes down. But there are a lot of Rubbermaid bins that I'm going to have to go through. Did I start as a lever knitter? No. No, I started doing the traditional English, I think it's called throwing technique of knitting under the hands. So if you give me a moment, I'll find a pair of needles and I'll show you how I used to do things. I'm coming up on the end of my bit of fluff. There's that. Okay. I have a pair of knitting needles around here somewhere. I was positive I had a pair kicking around here. Most of my knitting needles are still upstairs on the back of a door. Okay, we're going to use the 2-pen method. Since I can't find actual knitting needles. Okay. Focus. Okay. So the way that I knit right now looks kind of like this. I've got one needle in this hand like this, and the other one moves things along like that. So yarn goes over here, and it's just a movement like that with stuff. It's kind of hard to do this without any kind of actual knitting in front of me and my hands far out from my body, but this is pretty much how I do it. So the yarn comes off of my ring finger of my right hand, and the needle shoots forth from between my thumbs. So I'm holding it like I'd hold a pencil, but you can grip it just in the socket between your thumb and your forefinger. And on this side, of course, you're just basically holding the needle that holds the stitches. So as this needle goes through, you loop around. It's just a very small movement. And then you pull off and another stitch goes over, and it's very easy. This is the way that I learned how to knit originally. Was the usual, yarn comes off of your forefinger. So in, around, off, in, around, off, in, around, off. And it was enough of a lateral movement that it would hurt my finger after a while. You can see the movement there. Whereas here, it's just in, out, in, out, in, out, in, out. So the 9-inch circulars, which are the small circulars, again, it's knitting like this, and I get so tired after a while. It's like I go, oh, screw this, bugger this for a lark. I'm just going to go and stick this on my regular knitting needles and do this magic loop with the bunny ears. So that's the way that I knit, and that's the 2-pen method of demonstrating knitting. Hello, Teddy. Good to see you. I'm kind of hoping that if I continue to be unemployed and I don't have any appointments for any of the senior citizens in the family, scheduled for Wednesday, then perhaps I'll be able to do live stream midweek madness a little bit more often. I think what I'd kind of like is to be able to do crafty stuff on... Which side is which? This side is... Yeah, okay. I'd kind of like to do crafty stuff on Wednesdays and maybe do the backseat gaming stitch and bitch over on Twitch on Fridays. And that way... I just lost it. And that way I have plenty of time to hang out with people, and the character that I've been tooling around in Final Fantasy has a chance to level up. There we go. There we go. Go, it gives me a moment to get back in the groove. Take that to the side. Okay, so what do we got here? The yarn you bought, Chrissy, the yarn you bought that said sock yarn feels like a string of elastic. There is a yarn that I picked up at Michael's that, yes, does have an inordinate amount of elastic in it. I have not knit with it yet, and I kind of looked at it and went, no, I refuse. So it's probably the same stuff. If you're looking for something inexpensive to get started on, and you're heading to someplace like Michael's, the brand that you're probably going to want to start off with, which is just it's on the thicker end of sock yarn, is called Crochet. And it's fairly inexpensive. You can get 2 balls for, I don't know, 10, 15 bucks, less than 15 bucks. A lot of sock yarn will run you up towards $15 to $30 depending on the fiber content and the mill that it was spun in and whether it was dyed by an independent dyer. So there's a lot of variation and fluctuation in price, particularly if you're going for hand-painted yarn. And I'll warn you right now, some of those hand paints are flimsy as all hell. They're beautiful. They make lovely socks. They make gorgeous socks. The socks just don't last all that long. And that is to be expected when you're working with softer fibers like merino. I would be more inclined, and I've got a lot of merino. I've got a lot of this particular kind of sock yarn in my stash. And honestly, I've been using a lot more of that for my, for shawls and stuff like that. Pardon me. Shawls, mitts, scarves, hats. I have yet to make a sweater out of sock yarn, and that is a daunting idea because those are such tiny stitches. But Croy is fairly thick, hard-working yarn. It has a good wool content to it. It's not 100% acrylic, at least not last time I checked. And that stuff lasts for years. I found that I had to go up a needle size or two. Usually I knit about 8 stitches per inch on size 2.5 millimeter needles. For Croy, sometimes I have to go up to 2.75. Is it 2.7? 1.5 millimeter needles. I don't happen to have a gauge nearby. Whatever it is, it has a 0.5. Small Addy turbos. Size, I think they're considered like size 1 needle over there. Either way, I definitely recommend Croy if you're just starting out. They have some nice striping to them, and just avoid anything that has any elastic content to it. But yeah, economical stuff. And then once you've figured out what you're doing vis-a-vis sock knitting, then expand out to the expensive fiber. So other good ones that I've found, if you're going from Croy to another one, would be trying to remember the names off the top of my head. Oh, I've got Ravelry right here, and I am privileged enough to be able to look at it without getting a headache. So they had a yarn at Michael's for a while there called Mani Petty that was quite nice. It's very similar to some of the other stuff. This one. I'm going to mispronounce this. Schachenmeyer Regia. Perfect. And it's a nice striping sock yarn, and it gives you indicators, like if you can find any of the perfect yarn, PAIR perfect yarn, I do recommend it. You get nice stripes, and they give you like a lead up in another color. So pardon me, they might start off with a leader of yellow, and at the end of that yellow bit is where the pattern starts, so that you can start your sock right after that yellow bit. And then what you do is you wind forward within the ball after you've finished that sock until you get to the next yellow bit. At the end of that yellow bit, the pattern starts up again, and you just make your second sock. So there we go. Let's see here. So Chrissy, definitely try Croy. Try Regia. There's a couple of other brands that come out of, I think, Germany that are also quite good. They might all be part of the same group, Online or Online, ONLINE, Super Sock. What's this one? That's another Online or Online. These ugly ones, they're Regia. Regia can be hit and miss for your colors at times. But I find that they make a nice, long-lasting, thinner sock yarn. So they're thinner than Croy. They're about the same as any of the hand-painteds for thinness, but they're very sturdy because they have more just wool content. They also have a little polyester in it to give it a little bit more spring. Allows it to hold together a little bit better. So, let's see, live streaming, so of course it's going to act up, of course. Only afterthought heel is the only way I've ever successfully created a wearable sock. Right now, my current obsession is crochet socks. I saw a thing somewhere, and it might have been something like Reddit's Craft Snark or something, because yes, I am a horrible person. I read things like Craft Snark. I'm a middle-aged woman, of course I read crap like that. But somebody was talking about people going on about a latest trend for crocheting socks and how it's not ideal. And you know what? You want a thicker sock? Go ahead. Crochet a sock. That's fine. It's just a different texture. I'm getting more comfortable with the whole knit versus crochet thing. Is so many people, I think, still do the whole yarn snob thing and craft snob thing. And guys, I just learned how to tat. I cannot talk. I am now learning crafts that my grandmother did not know, or at least did not admit to knowing. Hands can't do tiny needles, have slippy sloppy joints that like to fight back when I'm working. That's why I do wood needles for socks, otherwise it'll all get away from me. Hey! I'm glad that you can use wood needles. I find that they don't have the amount of slip that I actually need. Me finding the right needles was an adventure. Because of course I'm looking for the cheapest solution, at least at the time I was, because I didn't know whether it was a craft I was going to stick with, right? So this is what, 2005, 2004, somewhere in there. And I'm having to remember things by where it was on the World of Warcraft release schedule, because I can remember, and Sherry can back me up on this. We used to knit on flight points. When we'd be on a long flight between Orgrimmar, or not Orgrimmar, Undercity, and on the way down to Molten Core, you had nothing to do with your time, so you just pick up your knitting, and next thing you know, the raid of 40 people is waiting for you, and you're like, "Can I just finish my round, please? The wyvern just finally landed." So that's how I remember when exactly I started knitting. It was before 2005, because I do believe World of Warcraft came out in 2005. I tried the cheap wooden needles from Michaels. I tried the cheap metal needles from Michaels. Neither of them is my jam, because the wooden ones are not slippery enough, and neither of them have the kind of cable that I need, which is thin and whippy. I need something that has some flexibility to it. So yeah, when I found the Addy Turbos, I was like, score, I win. And oh my goodness, these things are expensive, so I better be knitting socks right up until my 60s. So I have actually worn the nickel plating off a number of sock needles. It's hilarious. Okay. Oh. Somehow. Let's do this, shall we? Instead of just continuing to stack things up at the beginning of the bobbin. There was this other pair of needles that the yarn harlot, Stephanie Pearl McPhee, was promoting like mad at one point. These beautiful, sharp, pointy things that made out of anodized aluminum that just looked fabulous. And the husbeast went out and got me a set. Unfortunately, they didn't have circular needles at the time. They only had straights. So he got me these lovely straight needles, and I can knit with them. I'm scared to death of losing one. They're kind of uncomfortable because I don't like working with straight needles as you know, a habit. And they were sharp enough, like I got the stiletto points on these things, and they were sharp enough I actually cut myself with them. I wore a hole in my finger. It was like, okay, back to the Addy Turbos. They at least have a blunted tip. And Michelle knits continental because she learned crochet first. Fair enough. I've had more than one friend who has gravitated to continental either for speed or because they learned to crochet first. And I don't know if I already told Teddy that hello. But yes, I'm sorry that everything came out. I'm way back at the beginning here. There's a conversation going on and I'm spinning instead of looking at things. Sherry only knits English style. She's using 2 colors. Yeah, you're one of my continental knitters, aren't you? If I recall correctly. I only knit continental style if I'm doing color work because, yeah. Teddy gave up on Magic Loop because he knits in doll scale. Yeah, I can believe that. Lever knitting seems like it would be so fast. It can be. I find regular, underhand knitting to be, or under the knuckle knitting to be slow, but I'm just used to lever knitting now. The way that I learn things is I pick something up, I work on it for 15 minutes, and after that 15 minutes I can put it down or I can keep going. And most of the time I just keep going. So tatting can be horribly frustrating because you're working with knots, and if you don't get it right, you're having to pick out a knot. But for the most part, I pick up the tatting, I work on it for 15 minutes, and next thing I know, the husbeast is telling me an hour has gone by. So this is the way that I learn things. My brain seems wired for it. So now when I pick up my knitting, it's a no-brainer. I just, like literally a no-brainer. My brain just kicks into gear and I tension up and I get going. I had 2-hand continental in English with color work, but wow, that's hard. My brain doesn't think English knitting makes any sense at all. You get used to it. As I said, try it for 15 minutes. If you're really peeved with it after that, put it down. Grab a coffee. Give yourself a break. If you are still willing to give it another 5 minutes, another 10 minutes, do it. Set a timer. Go for another 5-10 minutes. If you still have patience after that, keep going. If not, take a break. Come back to it later. Or, look up different methods. You never know. Laura Mahi's daughter, listening to you while working on a cross-stitch project. Yay! I hope it's a good cross-stitch project. Lace knitting is really helpful for carpal tunnel. It's the constant changing of the movements for different stitches instead of just knit and purl. Made doll sweaters from self-patterning sock yarn. Works beautifully for the stripes. I can believe that. Lace weight yarn works nicely for doll socks. Yeah, that scales. And yeah, if the sock yarn is that elastic, Chrissy, just use it for elastic. Smallest socks on 0.3 millimeter needles. Yikes. Time to commute home. Okay, so I guess Sherry has gone home, or if she hasn't gone home, she will be soon. So have a good commute. I am sure that she will be logging into Final Fantasy or some other game soon enough. Michelle. Thinking back. It's so nice my people are talking to each other in the comments, or in the chat. Yay! Slipper socks are more common for crochet. Yeah, they're nice and thick and fluffy-ish. Firecrafted Gaming. Hi. Fabulous crochet bed socks. I remember when Plurk was a chatting interface. This is a long time ago, man. I don't think anybody's used Plurk in ages. People would say that they are Plurkrupt. I think I am bankrupt when it comes to my keeping up with my chat. I am getting to the point where I cannot keep up. The Canadian, sorry. Alrighty, I have finally reached the end of my little bit of fluff. So I am going to actually go and refresh my tea. Gonna wrap this around my speed knob because I am almost out of tea. So I will be like 5 minutes. You guys talk amongst yourselves. I will be right back. back. I've got tea. Let's see if it's... Oh, hot. Hot, 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 hot. Fresh out of the microwave. I made a pot of tea about a little while before I came downstairs to start all of this. And, yeah, it got a little cool, even under the pot warmer. So, because I didn't want to sit there making an entire new pot of tea and having to wait for the kettle to boil, I just nuked what was in the pot. Oh, we're talking about teaching youngsters how to craft. That is something I have never had to worry about. The only youngster I have had to teach to craft pretty much has been me. And for years, I think the most crafting I did was either cross stitch or some kind of stitching on plastic canvas. There's a part of me that's kind of afraid that I'm going to go through one of the bins of Mom's stuff, and I'm going to come across an old plastic canvas replica of the house I grew up in, because it was a project that Mom and I were working on, was to, like, and this is like when I was maybe in my preteens, was to do a replica of the Victorian home that I grew up in. And we kind of messed up when it came to the roof. We couldn't figure out how to put a roof on it. So I have a feeling if it's not in a bin somewhere, it got tossed out long ago. And here is a tip. If you're keeping your yarn in any kind of boxes, please consider investing in something like Rubbermaid. I know it's not as good for the environment per se as a cardboard box, but if your basement floods, you'll thank me. Oh, Teddy, I'm so sorry it's beyond your bedtime. Being forced to try cross stitch and never finished it. Oh no. See, one of the things that I find actually helps kids pick up stuff is just to watch the adults do it. My mother did cross stitch in Petty Point, so I picked up cross stitch just going, hey, can I borrow a little bit of this and a little bit of that? And I was never told no, and Mom didn't put any kind of rules on it. It was just, you're gonna try it? Okay. You've got a question? Okay, I'll answer it. But she didn't judge. And that was a big thing. My grandmother tried teaching me how to knit, and she failed miserably. And I think part of it was that it wasn't just sit there and watch Granny knitting. It wasn't a matter of asking questions or being allowed to hover over her shoulder. She actually tried to do the whole knitting lesson thing, and it just did not work out. Like, I could probably go for a little bit, but then I'd lose interest, and there wasn't really anything I wanted to make with it. With cross stitch, it's like you're making a pretty picture. It's paint by number. So you've got a little bit more, what's the word for it? Instant gratification. There's more gratification out of it than there is for knitting, because when you're 13 years old or 12 or 13 years old, unless knitting is actually fashionable at that point in time, and in the 80s it really was not that much fashionable. Unless you were looking for like the fluffy pink sweater from, oh god, I'm going back to 1985 with this. The original Teen Wolf as the girl that, there are a couple of fabulous sweaters in that movie. But those sorts of things were mostly utilitarian. But I found that most often I just need to be exposed to a craft long enough that I can see a need for it or an interest in it, and then I just kind of pick it up. Like, I looked at tatting and I went, there is no way I am going to learn tatting. My sister-in-law knows how to tat. If I need something tatted, I will beg her very nicely. And then one day I just went, you know what? My sister-in-law gave me these tatting needles. I should probably try it out. And now I've got a doily in the other room, and I'm considering putting tatted lace onto my Victorian sewing projects. It's wild. So just expose the kid to crafts. They'll figure out what they want to do sooner or later. Tried to teach daughter knitting, crochet, and cross stitch when she was a child and nothing stuck. Finally managed to get her knitting at 28. Crochet is a big nope still though. Oh, Sue. Hey, I was about 20. Was I in my 20s when I started knitting? No, I was in my 30s. I started knitting in my 30s. It took me a good long time. They are interested but not ready. It will be a very slow burn thing. Teach them a stitch, wait 6 months, teach another, then someday something will happen and they will just know it. Yeah, that's about it. Patience. I have something in my eye. Pardon me while I just put things to just crafting for a moment so you don't have to see me pulling apart my eyelashes to try to figure out what's going on there. Drink. You've toyed with learning how to tat. Okay. My advice for anybody who is considering learning how to tat. I have found how many resources online that I liked. Now I know that Engineering Knits, I think you pronounce your name Micah or Maka. I'm not sure. But Engineering Knits has started tatting, or at least she did start tatting, and she started making videos about it. And she learned mostly from a Victorian manual and then went to, can't remember the name of the person. That's gonna bug me. Let's see here. I'm just gonna go through my own YouTube watch list here. Where is it? Subscriptions. Names in the feed. Nope. 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 Okay. New window. Tatting. Oh, isn't this awkward? AT. Here we go. Tatting. Bryce Adams. That's the name I was looking for. Bryce Adams. So she learned mainly from manuals and Bryce Adams. I looked up Bryce Adams stuff last year before, when I think they did something around the time of Cozy or COVID. But I was interested slightly at that point and thought I'd give it a try. And Bryce Adams probably gives you one of the best visual explanations of it. Even so, I still couldn't quite get the hang of it, particularly flipping the knot around, which is a major part of it. There is another creator on both YouTube and Twitch who has a Patreon that, if you are willing to spend a couple of bucks to join her Patreon, she has tatting lessons on there. Name is Sparrow Spite. Sparrow as in the bird, spite as in I don't know, the feeling, SPITE. As in chop off your nose to spite your face. I found that watching Sparrow Spite and listening to some of her explanations made a lot of sense to me. So I watched a lot of her stuff and then finally went, okay, I'm going to be apparently subscribing to her Patreon at least for a little bit until I figure out what I'm doing, and it has been a help. So Sparrow Spite has been a big help, and they don't want to misgender, they have a lot of really good instructions and good modern patterns for learning how to do projects that you will enjoy, or at least projects that I'd enjoy, because of course it takes up with the goth punk aesthetic. I haven't been paying attention to my hooks. The other good resource that I have found on YouTube is a YouTuber whose channel's name is Frivole. Frivole. And I think they're a she. I couldn't be sure, but they're working on a lot of vintage patterns and antique patterns. Right now they're working on a couple out of the Priscilla #2 tatting book from, I think, about 1915, 1920, somewhere in there. And they're doing a tatted yoke that is absolutely spectacular, and it's one that I've put together a couple of little sample pieces following along, trying to figure out how to do it myself. And I wouldn't be surprised if at some point you see me doing the exact same yoke, because it is quite fabulous. But next thing you know, you're going to be, wandering around on Etsy, downloading patterns. And I found a PDF of a pattern book from 1944 for something like $4 Canadian. So it's like, okay, sold. It had collars and cuffs in it. Which I find funny is everybody sort of seems to equate tatting with Edwardians and Victorians, and yet apparently it reached its height in the 1940s or 50s. So I find that pretty cool. see here. Unpicking knots doesn't sound fun to me, but I'm intrigued by bobbin lace someday. Yeah, I'm intrigued by bobbin lace too. Someday I'll set up with a pillow and some bobbins, or I'll make the bobbins myself. Keep getting mesmerized watching the spool spinning. It is rather mesmerizing. It can be even mesmerizing to just hold on to the yarn or the fiber and feed it through. Knitting character jumpers for small boys. My grandmother was doing that. Cartoon characters in the Muppets featured heavily. I have a vague recollection of maybe an Oscar the Grouch, but I think definitely a Big Bird sweater. Eddie, jumper with animal on it. Yes. We'll learn all the things, just not all of them today. Taught 2 of 3 how to cook and bake. 3 is learning now. They will not go away to college and not be able to feed themselves. You be careful. You'll wind up with the situation we did where my brother would get insomnia, and when we'd wake up in the morning, he'd have baked an apple crisp. He still does that. Or at least I hope he still does that. I think his wife would probably enjoy the fruits of his labor. Son number 3 won over his current girlfriend by cooking her meals from her homeland, Hungary. That's awesome. Okay, well, Teddy, if you're not already gone, you have a good night. And if you have already gone and you're watching this in respect, bye-bye. Have a good one. Kathy, for tatting, I found an American shop that does little demos. I think their name is something like the Black Sheep, something. Name sounds vaguely familiar. But definitely, if you're interested in tatting online sources, the Antique Pattern Library has a whole bunch of books that you can use if you're interested in seeing the old-fashioned methods of pictorially showing you. Bryce Adams has a couple of really wonderful videos showing you how to move your hands. And Sparrow Spite and Frivol, both, as I said, wonderful work. I found watching Sparrow Spite's hands actually helped a lot, and it turned out that a lot of the problems that I was having was I wasn't relaxing enough. My hands were far too tense. I am going to cough. There, I hope the microphone did not pick up on that. Let's see here. What am I spinning? I am spinning into the world Qarth. Qarth. I believe it is a reference to Game of Thrones. 80% merino, 20% silk, from the Into the World Luxe Club from July 2013. And yes, Alora, there are worse things than apple crisp for breakfast. Midnight apple crisp sounds amazing to me. It can be. Before the whole panini made sure that we were all staying home, we used to do basically midnight at Denny's on occasion with a couple of friends, where if we were all having, I'm mostly a night owl, so being up until 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning is normal for me. And we would wind up at Denny's at midnight for dinner, because it's like a couple of our friends would also be similarly awake and in need of food, and so that's what we do. So we just go there. And they had a good apple crisp. So midnight apple crisp. But yeah, we'll see what this spins up to look like when it's done. I'm interested to see the distribution of the color, because when I first looked at it, I didn't really see any difference in value. That is the darks and the lights. And I still, looking at it objectively, okay, there's a few darks, a few lights, but nothing really spectacular. It's all towards a middle grade of value. But as I spin it, I do see sections like this one that I'm working on right now that are fairly pale, so we'll see what it spins up into, and farther than that, we'll see how many meters we get out of it and whether it's enough to make anything from it, because I think that would be pretty cool. Not sure there are any Denny's around us anymore, but we all did the same in high school, college, pre-kid years. Yeah, I have the privilege of not having kids, so I don't have to worry about getting a babysitter, because I have a hankering for pancakes at 11 o'clock at night, and I don't feel like making them myself. This is actually going a little faster than I thought. And it's probably because I'm not spinning this as fine as I spun the last bit, so we'll see what happens here. Also, this is only the bit of fiber that I'm working on right now is only about half of the amount of the entire third. And I may not have divided this up as wonderfully as I would have liked, so we'll see. A gamer being a night owl? No. Yeah. Trust me, I didn't set out to be a gamer. I was very happy knitting, and every so often playing The Sims, and then people introduced me to MMOs. I am looking forward to the next Final Fantasy upgrade or update patch. And I can't talk about it because we are nowhere near that content on the Twitch stream. How very Regency of you. What time is it? 2:51. Nice. We're coming up on 3. See, this today is like me actually having all of my metaphorical poop in a pile. I worked really hard last night to get all of the logistics set up for the actual shooting. For some reason, my Stream Deck is not playing nice with me, so it's been moved into the timeout side of the desk. So that's why you'll usually see me playing with the mouse when I'm switching views. Let's just put it on just crafting for a bit. There we go. We can be nice and hypnotic. But yeah, I got all of this stuff set up and had a little bit of a panic attack when the streaming software was giving me fits. But restarting the computer helped with that. And I got myself a solid start time and managed to get a rudimentary thumbnail put up so that you guys would all know about it. And then and all sorts of stuff like that. So hey, you know, I've got a solid, you know, semi-solid quitting time, basically, because I'm giving the dadster a little bit of help these days. He usually goes for coffee with one of the cousins in the afternoon, and he told me that he'd be done by about 3:30. So that's the general area that we'll be shutting things down for today. Trust me, for me, that's what I call, you know, being organized. Do I tend to spin with a project in mind or more yarn? I've been reading the Nitty Spin articles recently, and wow. I am not a mindful spinner. I am most definitely a mindless spinner. And it looks like I need to move my hook again. That's a little bit of ergonomic madness. Okay. But yeah, I don't tend to spin with any project in mind. I'll often try to figure out a yarn type that I want to try for. I generally tend to spin fairly thin, so usually 2 or 3 ply. Sometimes I'll get it depends on what kind of there we go. Usually the way that the yarn spins up determines what kind of project gets made out of it. So I had a couple that I made that really turned out well. And they were part of a monthly club by Fat Cat Knits where she would give you 2 colorways. So it would be, you know, 4 or 5 ounces, but 2.5 ounces each of 2 complementing colorways. And I've had a couple of them where they turned out really quite nicely when I didn't spin them together, when I spun them separately as their own little entities. So one of them made a really nice cowl for Mom. So she got that as a Christmas present one year. Another one of those turned into a pair of color-worked mittens for my dad. I think I've got one that I combined that's sitting in the stash waiting for the right project to kind of shake me by the shoulders and say, I want to be made into this. When the husbeast and I were still considering having kids, before we became old farts. I had spun up a bunch of fiber with the intention of turning it into like a baby jacket or something like that if we wound up having kids. So it's a really lovely silk blend. I have a feeling I will be holding on to that in case either of my nibblings, any of my nibblings decide to have kids, at which point we'll see who winds up getting like a baby jacket out of the stuff. Okay, so that's 2 bits of fluff down. Move that out a little bit more. There we go. What am I spinning on? Serenity Craft has only ever used Ashford wheels, but it has nothing now and thinking of making a drop spindle. Drop spindles are good. I have one of the, I think they're called a Turkish spindle. I don't know if that's a true name or whether it's a colloquialism, but I've got one of those and I like it. It's okay. I don't get a lot of enjoyment out of spindle spinning. It's a nice novelty once in a while. My main wheel upstairs is a Shacked Reeves. And this is an electric eel wheel by Dreaming Robots. And if you're looking for something that will allow you to spin and be able to put, I suspect I could put like an entire 1 to 2 bags, I could probably put about possibly 8 to 8 ounces of fiber on here, onto this bobbin. I think that's what they said that you could spin up to. It's only just under $300 US. So yeah, if you look up Electric Eel Wheel 6 by Dreaming Robots, I have definitely been enjoying spinning with this one. If I was to be going on a road trip, this is probably what I would take, since obviously my manual wheel is too big to fit in the trunk of a car. Yes, Turkish spindles do make the cutest little god's eye urine balls. The Husbeast bought me a purse a few years ago that has Domo, who, if I recall correctly, is like the mascot of public broadcasting or the library system, either or, in Japan, or at least one of the regions in Japan. And there were memes of him a few years back, if you remember seeing like a sort of brown slab-like looking monster chasing after kittens. That's Domo. So he bought me a little purse that had Domo on it, and that's where I keep my hand spinning stuff. And I haven't had a chance. I haven't really played with it very much in the past while. As I mentioned on a stream on Twitch, I have this tendency to use craft as a coping mechanism. So when I left my job, I picked up crochet because I figured if I could teach myself a new craft, then learning new skills for a new job would not be as difficult. And then when my nephew passed away, I gravitated towards my crochet again because I hadn't done that in a while. And I picked up a shawl that I had not worked on in a couple of years and cast on a new shawl. And then when Mum passed away, I brought out the spinning wheel. Or, yeah. And now I'm tatting, so... Let's see, Michelle W. I have a couple of drop spindles and one so-called Navajo spindle, but so far I suck at spindling because patience. But this e-spinner looks amazing. I might go for one sooner than later. And I object to the Navajo spindle name because I'm pretty sure it was originally a Pueblo spindle the Dine learned to use, but everyone knows about Dine and not many know about Pueblos, and I'm Pueblo. Fair enough. Fair enough. See, I always get confused because I lived for a while in the Northwest Territories, and I'm used to I'm used to the Dene community rather than Dine, and I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing Dine properly. So please correct me if I'm wrong. But I've seen it spelled both ways, and I kind of mentally shake my head and go, but the Dene are in the north. So, and trust me, I found quite a few Dene crafts in Mum's bins because when we lived up in the Northwest Territories, she was learning from indigenous craftspeople up there and taking classes from them. So it's very possible that at some point I'll show you some of the stuff, but I probably won't demonstrate it myself because even though I've got passing knowledge of it, it's really not my place to do so. I would rather see if my brother or my sister-in-law can get me in touch with somebody up north who would be willing to give a demonstration. And yes, Vara, Domokun. End of this bit of fluff. Need more fluff. I'm just gonna go as far as I can on what's left here. Recently been trying to learn shuttle tatting but can't get the knots to turn in the correct direction. Good at needle tatting though. My sister-in-law gave me both. She gave me some shuttles and she gave me a needle tatting kit. Both I think from Handy Hands. And I haven't even busted open the needle tatting. I really wanted to learn shuttle tatting, so that's just me. If the needle tatting works for you, go for it. Dene and Dine are probably closely related. Dine came down from the north and settled mostly in Arizona. Pueblos and Dine used to be bitter enemies, but we're basically good now. Well, I'm glad to hear that you're good now. I find it interesting because when my dad was... For a while in the 1990s, my dad worked for the government of the Northwest Territories in the Arts and Crafts Division. And part of his job was to go into some of the communities and help the local craftspeople be able to monetize their work effectively. And one of the projects he worked on was with the Jesse Unark Arts and Crafts Center up in Arviat, also known as Baker Lake, which is the geographical center of Canada. It is now in Nunavut and no longer part of the Northwest Territories, but when he was working there, he would, of course, find friends amongst the local population, and he'd find that they would do like a movie night where, you know, somebody who had a satellite television would invite people over to watch movies and so on and so forth. And at one point, I think they were watching Joe versus the Volcano. And remember, this is, of course, back in the 1990s. And apparently some of the words that were used in the script, which I think were supposed to be roughly Polynesian. I don't know whether it was, whether the actors themselves were Polynesian or anything like that. But the fellows that Dad was watching the movie with, or heard about it from it later, were really psyched because in the trailer, one of the words that they used was very similar to a word used by them in, I believe it's Inuktitut or Inuvialuit. Is it Inuvialuit? I've been out of the north long enough that I can't keep all of the names straight that are used for things, but it sounded vaguely like the same word in the northern dialect that they use. And so they were really interested to watch the movie and find out if they had anything in common with them. And Dad's like, guys, they're just actors. It's a script. Hopefully they had somebody work on the script who was knowledgeable. My sister-in-law is half Pueblo, half Dine. She's nice and keeps my bro fat and happy. Yes. There's something good to be said about fat and happy. But yeah, when Dad left Arviat, I seem to recall that the Unark Center didn't stay open for very much longer afterwards. And it's funny because I was taking a look through a Inuit art book at one point when I was visiting my brother up north, and they actually mention the Unark Center and how they would like to have it reopened, and that there was a man who had the key to that building, and unfortunately he's no longer with us. And I was like, I hope they're talking about my dad, because he really enjoyed his time there. He enjoyed being with the he enjoyed being part of the community, let's just say. The only problem, of course, is that it was very difficult for the rest of the family, because you've got a parent who's in and out of the community that you're in. And it's not like your parents got a divorce, it's just that your dad is out there on business. So it's kind of like the blue collar trades industry, where dad might be out for 2 weeks and in for 2 weeks. And I think that's what it was supposed to be like, but things got to be too busy out there, and so he had to stay longer than he could. So instead of him coming out, what he would do is he would use the money that was supposed to be for him to come back into town and send for Mom. And at one point my brother came out and they did some fishing, had a good time. I could not go out because I was taking piano lessons and needed to be near my piano to practice. But it sounds like he had a really good time up there. And some of the art that he was able to experience is just absolutely fantastic. Someday I will take the camera with me and just show you all the stuff that they collected. It's pretty cool. Oh, I need to stop for a moment. Need to rest my hands. Oh. So how are you guys doing? This is kind of cool. I've got the rest of the fluff just sort of coiled up in my lap. And it's just like, just keep on going. Keep on going. I get you on stuff happens equals make stuff. I'm currently teaching myself leatherworking. Yay! Leatherworking. Feeling pretty sleepy from this hypnotic spinning. Yeah, I can understand that. Ah. When I made the pocket for the sharing thing, is there a general size for pockets? I would have to say that from the minimal amount of research that I did, and that mostly includes going to the Victoria and Albert website. Apparently, as people were stuffing live animals into their pockets to try and make off with produce, no. I think it mostly has to do with how far you're willing to lean over to one side or another when you're digging through your pockets. And whether or not you're wearing clothes that can conceal the bulge. Oh, the hubby's already gone to bed. So in other words, this is a good time to just sort of sit and do your thing before you have to go to bed. Live animals, yes. Yes, if I recall correctly, there was a case of a woman who smuggled out a couple of live ducks or geese. And she was I think arrested for theft. So yes, if you need a place to hide your waterfowl, you can always put them in your pocket. But what I wound up doing is the Victoria and Albert has a rudimentary pocket pattern on their page. Yay for alliteration. They have a basic pocket that's pretty much hand-drawn that has the embroidery kind of sketched in on top of it, so that if you wanted to make a embroidered pocket the same as they've got in their collection, you could do so. So what I wound up doing, hand cramp. What I wound up doing was taking that pattern and pulling it into Adobe Illustrator and making it. First, I had to try and bring it to scale, and then I had to trace around it and even out all of the abnormalities with the pocket. So I was making it symmetrical because the pocket that they had on their page is not. Basically what they've got is like somebody traced the pocket itself and then sketched in the embroidery pattern. So I took it into Illustrator and I just cleaned up the outline and put in my own markings and stuff. So the pocket pattern that I use is available on my Patreon for, I think, my $10 patrons. Basically, anytime I make a pattern, I just throw it up on there, which is why I'm considering moving my stuff from Ravelry over onto the Patreon, so that if somebody wants to make like the TARDIS mitts that I designed or anything else, they can do so and not have to pay like the $6 off of Ravelry and possibly get a headache if they're impacted by the Ravelry UI change from a couple of years ago. You can say things got clucked up. See, I have some of the best patrons in the world. Kat is one of them, and if she's not making fun puns, she's making really cool stuff in our Discord. So technically it's my Discord, but I'm her fan. Me and Mr. Husband have been servants to our guinea pig overlords for the past bunch of years. Short answer, they will probably like a fluffy place. Yeah, you could probably carry around your guinea pigs in an appropriately sized and comfort designed pocket. How are we doing? Okay, I need to move the hook again. It is really easy to get into a groove while you're spinning and lose track of where your yarn is on the bobbin. Thankfully, I now have a top-down view, so I can just, watch the bobbin on the screen in front of me because I'm sitting in front of my computer. And that's why I don't live stream sewing, because for starters, my sewing room is on the other side of a wall. And secondly, you'd just see me squinting at things for like a good 2 hours. King Georgie has been cross for insisting he take his medicine this week. Perhaps a fluffy pocket could be a piece of fucking... Oh, Kat, you're pretty awesome yourself. Oh, carrots and oranges. So at some point, I have to get this house cleaned up because we are experiencing a serious lack of cat. And we have decided not to bring cats into this household until it's, you know how when you have kids you baby proof, which basically just means moving things out of the way so the kids don't get into too much trouble. Well, it's the same thing with cats, and we don't want any new cats to find all of the places where the elderly cat was incontinent or you know, left other marks or decided that she wanted to pick the carpet over much, etc. Is if these kitties are going to be inclined to use, for instance, twine or sisal stuff, we'd like them to use the twine or sisal stuff rather than picking our carpets like Mischief did. So, at some point, I will need to, in addition to finding a place for all of my mother's stash stuff, also clean up the rest of the house so that we can have cats again, because goodness only knows, maybe I will traumatize this set by carrying them around in pockets. But if we weren't set on having cats, we would probably consider rabbits, because we have soft spots for buns in this household. And the husbeast has had bunnies before and had to inform me that bunnies are not really into carrots. Bunnies are into the tops of carrots. Which is why Kathy's comment got me talking about cats and bunnies. Very relaxing. It's always nice to see you make things. One can trust that the end result is always interesting. Well, I'm hoping that the end result will be interesting. I'm hoping that it's not just going to be one entirely blue and olive mess, honestly. There is a spinner on Ravelry thing for string. They make some absolutely gorgeous spun yarns, and someday I want to be able to make just as good, if not better, yarns. But they definitely have an awesome eye for color. So when I was deciding to do this, when I was taking a look on Ravelry to see what other people had done, and I don't recall if anybody actually did do a 3-ply fractal, but I saw a whole bunch of other ones that were done around the same time in different colorways, and I thought, you know what, that looks fantastic. Let's give it a try. How is a guinea pig terrified of oranges? Mess can be interesting too. Mess is okay, but you know, I'd prefer my house not look like I live in a sand crawler, and that is a direct quote of the husbeast. For anybody who is a fan of the Star Wars universe. Funnily enough, one of the alert sounds that I have hooked up to YouTube for, I don't know what, whether it's if I decide to turn on member the ability to have channel members, I guess, which could happen. If I decided to do that, am I going outside the bounds again? Yes, I am. And people wanted to become members. I think it's that or something else. One of the things that I think Streamlabs allows you to do is to embed little widgets into your streams. So if people donate money or join as members or subscribe to the channel or whatever, it triggers fun little things to go off. And one of my triggers, and I can't remember which one it is off the top of my head, is actually a Star Wars Jawa going ooh dee dee. I've also got an R2-D2 somewhere in there. And the rest, I think, are Wednesday Addams with various sound effects. because that's just how I roll. It's all Wednesday Addams over here. Live in a sandcrawler apartment. Oh no. Trust me, I take a look at some of the lovely aesthetic households that a lot of other YouTubers have, and I'm like, I have a hard enough time doing dishes on a good day. I'm beginning to wonder if I have ADHD or something, just because I have this. I am constantly doing dishes, and yet my kitchen is never clean. 3 dogs, 4 pigs, and keeping them all apart is interesting. Oh, ow. You have a veritable menagerie. Mischief baby daffodil once vaulted over a baby gate, 4-pound bun up and over. Woo! That's a bun with some jackrabbit in them. Found your Discord. Are there rules I need to agree to? No. My only real rule is don't be a dick. It's pretty much the Will Wheaton law of the internet. You know, sort of the golden rule of, you know, do unto others as you would have them do unto you, but in a non-preachy way kind of thing. Unless, of course, you are a masochist. Because in that case, do unto others as you would have them do unto you is really not suitable. Other YouTubers only show the same angles all the time. What's out of frame is out of frame. Well, that's true. We have only seen a small part of Bernadette's apartment and some of Morgan Donner's place. We've seen a heck of a lot of Rachel Maxey's house. And with Makara Tours, you're never quite sure what you're going to get. One week it's a house, the next week it's an RV. Schrodinger's dishes. I'll have to remember that one. 3 bachelors and a teenager. Oh, goodness. The only thing that Husbeast and I have determined is that when we get another set of cats, we actually want to get multiples this time, because our previous cat was part of a litter, and we got her a little too early. A friend of ours had taken in a stray, and the stray gave birth. And we had the opportunity to take our cat and her sister, and at the time, because we had just moved in with each other. So this was almost 20 years ago. We had just moved in with each other, and we weren't sure that we could handle more than one cat. So we only took the one, and we should have taken both. But we determined that this time around, when we adopt again, we're going to adopt at very least a pair, at maximum, I think 4. I think we decided that the maximum amount of cats that we would be able to keep up with is possibly 4, and that's only because we have a family member with a couple of cats, and if anything happens to her, we're probably going to wind up taking care of the kitty cats. So 2 cats is probably on our horizon sooner. And so we've got a relative who works with a humane society or an animal rescue, and they're keeping an eye out for a couple of kitty cats that will be a good match for our household. either way, if you get a cat at a young enough age and they're used to having other cats around, even if they're not a bonded pair, they should be okay. Good night, Mary. I'll probably be signing off in a couple of minutes myself. I'm just going to finish out the end of this bit of fluff because I'm going to have to go and help Dad with a couple of things. So you have a good night. Sleep well. 2 teens and a preteen. The piggies are the least stressful of the lot, especially if we include my retired autistic mother. Oh no. Things are not, things seem to not be, dull around your household. Is it a clean house or a realistic backdrop? Only the streamer knows for sure. I have been asking that about Closet Historian's backdrop for a while, and apparently she decorated one wall of her space, so yay. It was a little bit of column A and a little bit of column B. Do I have to move this? Yeah, I'll move the peg a little bit more. Searching clean house backdrop now. My honey and I aren't married and we live with a married gay couple. Hey, that's great. The house that we live in, when we were out looking, our neighborhood has a lot of multifamily homes in it. So finding a place that wasn't divided up into smaller units inside was a bit of a challenge. And the only reason why we were up in this area is because it was close to where I worked, where the husband works, and where my parents live. That last one was kind of a sideline, but it's become a bit of a benefit now. And it turned out that the couple that we bought the house from was a very lovely gay couple, and they had lovely taste in decor. The only reason why we knew that they were a gay couple is because we were told that the house was being sold by a couple, and when we went looking, all we could find were closets full of men's clothes. I am perfectly okay with that. Four cats is kind of the unofficial threshold of crazy cat ladyism. After that, you are the one with the cats. That would be Noelle of Costuming Drama. I think she's got something like 10 of them. I know she has a lot. Serenity Craft, my cat won't let me get another cat. He's the boss. All the other animals must remain outside away from his food. Yeah. Our late kitty was an only kitty, and by the time we were considering getting a second cat, she was very firmly in the thou shalt have no other cats but me camp. So there's a girl with the dogs on YouTube, so why not? There is a channel that is basically the lady with all the cats. The channel is called Kittysaurus, Kittisaurus, and I think she's got something like 10 cats, and she does all kinds of fun little challenges for them, like putting up a wall of saran wrap and seeing what the cats do when she calls them for treats. I had a friend whose mom was a cat lady, and OMG the smell. So yeah, I'd realistically have to cap it. Yeah. Yeah, as it is, we kept Missy's sandbox on the main floor. And we're kind of hoping that with this group we can actually train them to use the utility room, so that way, even though it gets changed every day or cleaned every day, there's less cat for visitors to have to deal with. That is the end of that piece of fluff. So, got an orange stick right here. Turn off. You can stay there. Husband was rooming with a gay friend when we were dating. Great guy, but very tidy. Probably kept him from strangling my very messy husband by performing random acts of tidiness. Your husband's roommate was very lucky that he found you. Anyhow, that is it for me for the day. I have to go and help my dad do paperwork and stuff. So, my plans at this point in time are to hopefully start work on the next video very soon. But in the meantime, I'm going to try and keep doing at very least a weekly stream until that point. Until the point comes where I can start releasing videos again. And in fact, I'm kind of hoping that it continues even after I release videos, because I kind of like the whole idea of doing like a stitch and bitch that you can, you know, just sort of hang out, talk, do crafts, subvert expectations. I am very much not a, this is the mystique behind my channel, is no, this is it. It's usually me knitting something or hand sewing something or whatever, and my office is small and green and has a murder door. Take care of yourself. Hugs to you, the husbeast and the fam. So sorry, it's been a hard time. You know, on the one hand, there is some emotionalness, but and that's mainly in the sewing camp. But the main thing is all the paperwork that comes when somebody passes away. You wind up having to go through houses and sort things and divest the family estate of stuff. And I've got a parent who needs assistance getting everything figured out. We've had to go here, there, and everywhere, having to get accounts changed over into his name. So things are starting to finally click into place, but it's a lot of the bureaucracy that comes with end of life that we'd kind of hoped that we'd had a little bit more of a firm base on before we started. So, murder door. Oh, Michelle, that's right. You don't know the run-on joke that I've had. Behind this door here is the rest of my basement. And I am notorious for not having it closed when I'm streaming on Twitch. So often what you will see is the sort of black space behind me, and sometimes the glow from one of the well windows here in the basement. So I have started referring to it as the murder door, because you guys, at very least, while I'm playing video games, would be able to tell me if somebody's creeping up behind me. With it closed, obviously, that's not the case. So, woe betide, I open the door and the husbeast is standing there going, "Ah!" the paperwork and the sorting, deciding the fate of stuff. The paperwork will stop eventually. Yeah, we're getting towards the end of some of the paperwork. Some of it's not so pleasant. So we're getting there. Divesting the house of stuff it's been the more difficult part. Thankfully, my brother came down from the Northwest Territories and helped clean out a bunch of Mom's stuff, and my responsibility is stuff like the stash and the basement and stuff like that. So that is pretty much where I've been for the past while. So I'm going to see whether or not I can film any of that, because as we were chatting earlier, there is something to be said for stash acquired beyond life expectancy, and it really doesn't take much for that to happen. I've got a fairly sizable stash. I'd say it's pretty respectable. It's nowhere near the vast size that quite a few people have. And even I am sitting there going, if anything happened to me, who would take care of it? So I've got a couple of friends who know enough about crafts that when the husbeast and I get around to finally getting our wills done, because you should do that if you're an adult, I will be probably reaching out to a couple of friends or family members to say, hi, could you please do me a favor and be my yarn executor? My stash executor. So yeah. But those are things that I can talk about in a video some other time. I'm just trying to get myself beyond that to the point where it's just, hi, how are you? How is life doing? And we don't wind up talking about a whole bunch of stuff that could be triggering for other people. Anywho. Murder door sounds conveniently like Mordor. Some Nazguls lurking there too. I wouldn't be surprised. Our basement is messy enough. Anyhow, it's 3:44 p.m. here in beautiful sunny Calgary. At least I assume it's sunny. I'm in a room with no windows. So I will talk to you guys later, and we will do some more spinning on this bad boy. Hopefully next week, maybe next Wednesday. We've got the time. And yeah, see you later.